This is Christopher John Björkness. It is October 9th, 2024. We're coming up on Yom Kippur, and that will figure in to my presentation today. I'm going to be talking about the election, Trump's idolatrous prayers to win the election that he made to the Chabad Lubavitch Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson, Messiah of the Jews. Trump wasn't praying to Jesus, and he didn't pray like a Christian. He prayed like a Jew because he is a Jew. He was wearing a yarmulke, and I'm going to be showing that and explaining all of that. It's vital for people to know. I'm going to be going over the election. I'm going to go over Yom Kippur. I'm going to go over the nuclear blackmail that is taking place. And I have unique insights into all that no one else in the world has. And I am so grateful to be able to present you with those insights. And I'll even pray like a Christian. I want to thank the wonderful, wonderful people who contributed to make this possible. You showed that you appreciate me, you believe in me, you want me to keep going, you value my work and my insights, and it's incredibly encouraging and reassuring. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'm really glad to be able to keep at this, especially in this month of October leading up to the elections. Part of a democracy and a republic is that the electorate needs to be informed. And I'm going to inform you of things today that nobody else in the world can. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. Thank you all so much. I'd also like to thank a special dear friend who inquired into my opinions on the election and what the election results will be, which has inspired me to make this video. Thank you so much. Dear friend, vielen Dank, mein lieber Freund. Danke sehr für alles. I'm tremendously grateful to you. Thank you so much, my friend. So let's start digging into Trump's idolatrous Jewish prayers to Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. I want you to note that he is putting a stone atop the gravestone of the Rebbe, which is a general Jewish tradition, especially among Ashkenazi Jews dating back at least to the medieval period. But in Kabbalah, it has a very special meaning. So pay attention to him doing that. Pay attention to the way he prays, and that he has a little piece of paper which has a prayer written on it. And I'm certain that he was praying to win the election. And he was not praying to Jesus. And he was not praying to the God of Israel. He was praying to Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And he followed all of the Jewish rituals to engage in that prayer. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he had a Jewish prayer shawl on beneath his garments. So let's pull that up. So pay attention. Trump has a little sheet of paper with his prayer, obviously a prayer to win the election. And he's going to go through that ritual of reciting that prayer and praying, bobbing back and forth like the Jews in front of the Wailing Wall, or whenever Jews pray, or even when they study the Torah or the Talmud or Kabbalah, they do those motions. You'll see that he's not praying to Jesus. He's praying to the deceased Rebbe, who is his Messiah. Prior to this, in previous elections, Jared Kushner, his Chabadnik son-in-law, and Ivanka, his Chabadnik daughter, made a ritual of going in both previous elections, going to visit the grave of the Rebbe. They were there to pray also for Trump's victories. They were not praying to Jesus. They were praying to Chabadnik Lubavitch Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. there are different rebbes for the different Hasidic movements. And these rebbes are thought to act as the intercessors, the mediators between man and God, just as Jesus was, just as the Logos is, just as Metatron is, just as the archangels are. This is idolatrous worship of a man. That man is not Jesus. That man is the Rebbe. Trump is a Kabbalistic Jew engaging in Kabbalistic idolatry. So let me sneak out of the way. He's unfolding a little sheet of paper. I'm going to show you what that means. It's a prayer. He's reading his prayer. He's showing his prayer to his rabbi. And you'll see that he moves like a Jew as he prays. Come on, get to it, Trump. See him bobbing back and forth and side to side as he prays? That is not a Christian way of praying. That's a Jewish way of praying. And let's see. You can see that he puts a stone up on the grave. That's very significant. I'm going to explain what that means when he does that. He's walking over to the gravestone and he's placing a rock on top of it. And that has deep Kabbalistic meanings. Now, this is common practice among Jews, but in this context, it has a specific meaning. And that meaning is to summon the soul of the Rebbe down to the earth so that Trump can communicate with the Rebbe and the Rebbe will grant his prayer. So let's start looking into the proof of what I just said. So it's important to note that while he prayed, he bobbed and he rocked. He's wearing a yarmulke. He probably has a prayer shawl under his clothes. He's not praying to God. He's not praying to Christ. He is praying to Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. That is the idolatrous worship of a man. All the Christian evangelicals are being deceived by this Judas goat, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has the Gentile soul of Messiah, son of Joseph, like Jesus did. And his role is to lead us all into disaster in the name of saving us. America is Amalek. It is Esau. It is Edom. That means that America has the thickest, densest, most evil Kelipot. Kelipot is a shell or a husk. The shell protects the pearl, the spark within. The husk protects the fruit inside of it. It is Amalek's role to serve as this evil shell of protection. So Trump and America, and it's also true under Biden, is serving as the Kelipot for Israel to release the holy spark of the Messiah to unite the Jewish people into one soul of 600,000 sparks that were contained in the soul of Adam, all 600,000 Jewish souls, representing the 600,000 Jewish males that engaged in the Exodus from Egypt. So a lot of people have a difficult time understanding how Christianity and how America can serve as the great protector of the Jews, while at the same time being Amalek. The key to understanding that, and this is my unique insight, I'm sure others try to rip it off once I say it, but at any rate, it is important and essential to understand that the role of Amalek is to be the vessel, the Kelipot, that serves as the armor, the shell, the husk, surrounding the Jews as their guardian and their protector until such time as Amalek is nullified, is annihilated back into pure tohu, vavohu hoshech, formlessness, emptiness, and darkness, resolved back into chaos and made to disappear. The nullification of the Kelipot of the Gentiles is that they cease to exist and they are nullified. And that is how America, serving as the shell around the Klipa Noga, the shining shell, the shining Kelipot of the Jews, serves its role as the guardian and the protector. And in serving that role, America is slated to be completely annihilated and nullified and wiped out, so that vessel of darkness that serves as a protective shield consumes itself in that role, protecting Israel, and is completely annihilated and destroyed. And that role of being Edom is the role of the Leviathan. The Leviathan gets gored and destroyed by the behemoth of the Eurasianists. So the Atlanticists of America and Great Britain are Amalek, are Edom, are Esau, and they are the Kelipot, and they protect the Klipa Noga, the shining sparks, the shining shells of the Jews. And in doing so, they take all the blows and will be consumed and destroyed, protecting Israel in order to usher in the Messianic era. And Donald Trump is slated to be that Messiah, son of Joseph, leading Edom into its self-consumption and destruction as the Klipa, protecting Israel, and in the process being nullified into tohu, into chaos, and being completely annihilated. So you saw how Trump put the stone atop the grave. There is a Chabad Lubavitch article up that discusses this. Again, Jews do this generally, but in the context of what Trump just did, it was to summon the soul of the Rebbe to hear his prayer and honor his prayer to win the election so that he can fulfill his role as Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph, the Messiah anointed for war, who is the second coming of Christ, who comes back as the Antichrist to exterminate the Christians of the West. The placement of the stone serves as an invitation of sorts for a spark of the departed to come down and rest upon the tombstone for the duration of the visit. The visit was to the Oel, the grave of Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Now, the Talmud says that anyone who reads the face, the letters on a gravestone, gets bad mojo and can't properly study the Torah. So one of the mythologies is that the placing of that rock onto the gravestone is to serve to guard against that by hiding the letters. But it obviously doesn't hide the letters. And this is Kabbalah, not Talmud. And the role is to bring down the soul of Menachem Mendel Schneerson so that he can be the intercessor with God and the Messiah and grant Trump's prayer to win the election. At the Oel, which is the grave of the Rebbe, visitors have a tradition of writing fitlach, prayers on small pieces of paper, which are then torn up and tossed into the graves. And then when they accumulate so many that it becomes a burden, they then the shredded notes are then burned. The kvitlach refers to a practice developed by Hasidic Judaism in which a Hasid, a follower of Hasidic Judaism, writes a note with a petitionary prayer and gives it to a Rebbe, Hasidic Jewish leader, the intercessor, the intermediary between man and God, like Jesus Christ, like the Logos, in order to receive the latter's blessing. This prayer may be a general request for health, livelihood, or success in the presidential election, or a specific request such as recovery from illness, the ability to bear children, a wedding match, a failed election campaign. So we have Donald Trump engaging in Jewish voodoo to try to win the election. His Chabadnik daughter and son-in-law bolster that process. We had Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is tied up with Chabad through Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, who also visited the grave and went through the ritual and gave his prayer, probably the same prayer that Trump would win. I said all along that Kennedy was running as a spoiler to get Trump elected for Chabad. We had Malay from Argentina, the Jewish convert, went through the same ritual, probably praying for the same thing. So part of how they're going to shoehorn Trump back into office is, let's go over Yom Kippur first. I think you'll be interested in what's coming on Yom Kippur. There was a war in 1973 called the Yom Kippur War, in which Arab nations attacked Israel. Egypt wanted to recover the Sinai, and they invoked their Samson option and set up 13 20 kiloton atomic bombs. The Nagasaki atomic bomb was 25 kilotons. The Hiroshima atomic bomb was 15 kilotons. They had 13 of these suckers ready to nail the Arabs with, to bomb the crap out of Egypt, out of Syria, especially Damascus. We have the woe of Damascus coming up. We have the destruction of Tyre and Sidon happening right now, pursuant to Ezekiel chapters 27 and 28. We have the destruction of Philistia, Ashkelon, pursuant to Zephaniah chapters 1 and 2, and Amos, and countless other passages which I presented to you before. This is the schedule that's unfolding during the Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of the Messiah that commenced on not on October 7th, but when Iran hit Israel with the first barrage of missiles back on, I think it was April 13th, 2024. That initiated the 9 months of the birth pangs of the Messiah and the war between the Jewish Messiah, son of Joseph, Benjamin Netanyahu, as opposed to the Gentile, supposedly Goy Messiah, son of Joseph, Donald Trump. That soul is also divided into other people. I've gone over that before. If you go back and watch my videos, one of the most important ones was pulled off YouTube. If you watch one of my previous videos, I was searching for it, and I've since remembered the fact that it's been censored off of YouTube. You can find it on BitChute. In the Odysee, the censorship is just horrendous. I've never seen anyone nearly so shadow banned as I am on X. I'm producing the most important content in the world. I've been putting it out for 30 years, and I've been horrifically censored. And there's nobody, no big channels out there promoting me. They don't want this truth out. They don't want you to know these things unless they can co-opt it and steal it from me and then put their spin on it to make it divisive and chaotic and destructive. So let's have a look at the Zohar. I've been talking about this for 20 years. I got tuned into it from Johann Andreas Eisenmenger's book Entdecktes Judentum, Unrevealed or Unmasked Jewry, a book he wrote in the late 1700s exposing the Jews. He, like I, was heavily censored. The Jews corrupted the government so that they would seize all the copies of his book. This made him so distraught that it eventually led to his death. I recommend anyone interested in the Kabbalistic aspects of all this to read Eisenmenger, and I want to thank Eisenmenger for presenting these things at his own expense that led me to discover and to go beyond him. He pointed out the idea that the Zohar talks about Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, October 11th and 12th, coming up very shortly. Don't be surprised if there is a military engagement. They have to sacrifice 2 goats on that day. One of those goats goes to the God of Israel and is Jews who are deliberately massacred as a human sacrifice. The other goat is pushed off a cliff in the wilderness to Azazel, to Samael, to Satan the devil. That is the Gentiles, who are deliberate human sacrifices to the devil. You will see Jews on Yom Kippur swinging chickens around their head. That is the evolution of this same process of sacrificing goats to Satan. So when you see Jews swinging chickens around their head, they are sacrificing them to Samael, to Satan. It's a very unsanitary practice. It spreads blood all over. It's truly disgusting. And it is Satanism. It is making sacrificial offerings to the devil. Zohar makes that very clear. I don't think Eisenmenger cited this passage, but he cited the one that I'm going to get to following this. One of the things that I have noted that Eisenmenger evidently didn't pick up on is this flipping of the devil from the accuser of Israel into the defender of Israel. And the same thing happens with Jesus Christ, Mashiach ben Yosef. Jesus Christ initially accused the Pharisees and accused the Jewish people. He is sacrificed as the scapegoat and will return as Donald Trump and flip and becomes the defender of the Jews and the exterminator of the anti-Semites. That's the whole plan for Christianity. That's been the whole plan for Christianity, as I pointed out, not that craphead Adam Green who rips off my work. I came up with that insight, not him. And that is the reversal of the accuser into the advocate. And let's have a look at that in the Zohar itself. So this is the Zohar on Vayikra 3, 62b to 63b is the section in which it appears. Leviticus, Vayikra. This is from the Soncino translation. We have learned that there are many demons under his Samael's control, whose office is to spy out the earth for those who transgress the commands of the law. But on that day, the day is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, there is no opening for any accusation against Israel. This is the day. I should probably explain that. Yom Kippur is the day when a trial is held in the heavenly court. And in that trial, Samael has witnessed and was the tempter of all the sins of Israel. And his role is to serve at the right hand of God as the accuser of the Jews, and to point out all their sins, and to act as the prosecuting attorney in the heavenly court between God and the princes of the 70 nations. God is the advocate of Israel. The princes are the advocate of the Gentiles. The 71st prince is Samael. He is the father of all the Gentiles through Eve. He produced Cain when they copulated. And his job is to prosecute the Jews for all of their breakings of the commandments of the law in the previous year, and then to punish them. He's represented by din and gevurah, severity, power, and punishment on the left-hand side of the Sephirotic tree of life on the planet Mars in the fifth Sephirah, gevurah or din. So this trial is held, and the way that they escape all these punishments is to push a scapegoat, the second goat of the twin goats, off a cliff and give it to Azazel so that he plays with it and he's confused and he pays attention to it and gets confused and loses his interest in accusing Israel, and instead accuses his own offspring, the Gentiles, of all the sins of Israel. The Gentiles are then found guilty of those sins and punished by being exterminated and sent to hell. This could be the final day of atonement in human history, in which all Gentiles are accused and sent to hell in the place of Israel for Israel's sins, to cleanse all of Israel. This is where the term scapegoat comes from. And the Zohar makes crystal clear that the scapegoat is the Gentiles. The Gentiles are falsely accused by their highest prince, the poison god, the angel of death, their guardian angel, the Gentiles' guardian angel, falsely accuses them of all the sins of Israel so that they become the scapegoat themselves. And they are killed by the devil. The devil is Messiah, son of Joseph, and the Gentiles will be killed by Messiah, son of Joseph. His soul resides in Putin, in Xi Jinping, in Donald Trump, and the plan is for them to kill us all off so that we are scapegoated for the sins of Israel. We are the Kelipot. We darken the world so that their sparks are not revealed. In order to reveal their sparks, we have to be nullified. Amalek was the first nation to demonstrate the accessibility of Israel to military attack, but its ultimate end is to perish forever and have its name blotted out of the book of life and out of existence. And that is what is transpiring right now. This Yom Kippur is especially dangerous in that context, because we now have this nuclear blackmail taking place all over the world. And we have Messiah, son of Joseph of the Jews, as opposed to Messiah, son of Joseph of the Gentiles, engaging in a war with the king of Persia, King Shiroi, in Kabbalistic lore, and prior to that in the Sefer Zerubbabel. The Zohar also talks about this war, and this is the 9-month period of that war between Israel and Iran, Iran being Persia. When that war culminates, Messiah, son of Joseph, Benjamin Netanyahu, according to much of the apocalyptic literature, is slated to perish so that he can release his soul of Tohu, Yechida Mashiach, the highest soul of the 7 souls, of the 5 souls, And that soul will then fill the vessel of Messiah, son of David, who will be anointed. The 3rd temple will be built, and the Gentiles will be gone, starting with Edom, starting with Americans, the British, the continental Western Europeans, the Russians, after helping to bring this about, will themselves, the White Russians, be annihilated by the Africans, Middle Easterners, and Asians they have brought in, probably Latin Americans as well, to annihilate all of the white people on Earth. And then the White Russians will themselves be killed as they were in the Bolshevik Revolution. And that will be the destruction of Edom. That will be followed by the destruction of the behemoth, or it may take place concurrently. They have plans A, plans B, plan Z, alternative plans, and they have all kinds of ways of saying that it can be more severe or less severe, depending upon whether the generation of the Jews is worthy to receive Messiah, son of David. That is why Trump is making such a grand show of appealing to American Jews to support him in his election bid, because the Israelis have already demonstrated they are the worthy generation, which is why Netanyahu was allowed to begin the war with Iran himself instead of waiting for America to do it. If the Jews of America demonstrate that they are the worthy generation to receive the Messiah by helping to elect Trump, this could initiate the end of the world. The end of that 9-month birth pangs of the Messiah, Chevlei Mashiach, began on April 13th and will end with the election on November 5th. The plan is to get Trump into office then. And I'm going to talk about some of the ways that they're setting that up to do that. But let me finish up with the Zohar and what it says about Yom Kippur, which is coming up in a couple days. We have learned that there are many demons under Samael's control, whose office it is to spy out the earth for those who transgress the commandments of the law. But on that day, there is no opening for any accusation against Israel, that day being Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. When that he-goat reaches the rock of Azazel, that's a cliff where he's pushed off, there is great rejoicing, and the emissary who went forth to accuse returns and declares the praises of Israel, the accuser becoming the defender. Jesus was the accuser who becomes the defender. The devil is the accuser that becomes the defender of Israel. Donald Trump is the defender of Israel. He says that he's going to exterminate all anti-Semites, all of American whites, all of European whites are Amalek, Esau, Edom. They are the enemies of Israel that are to be killed off by the defender of Israel, Satan, who flips from the accuser to the defender on Yom Kippur, which is going to happen in 2 days. Trump is positioned as that defender, as Cyrus, as Jesus, the second coming of Jesus. It is not to defend the Gentiles, it is to exterminate the Gentiles. And that's exactly what it says in the book of Revelations, that Jesus is going to come back and kill off all the Goyim and make 144,000 Jewish male virgins bear the souls of the 600,000 and regenerate Israel after the Gentiles are exterminated. And that is Trump's role. And not only on this day, but whenever Israel desire to be cleansed of their sins, God shows them how to restrain the accusers by means of the offerings which are brought before the Holy One, blessed be He, and then they cannot harm. But this day is more efficacious than all, and just as Israel appease all below, so all those who have accusations to bring above are appeased, though all the service is to the Holy One. We have learnt that at that hour of which it is written that Aaron was the high priest, should take, in Leviticus, should take the 2 he-goats, all those accusers who are above rouse themselves and seek to go forth into the world. And when Aaron brings those brings near those below, those above are brought near. He's talking about the heavenly court and the 70 princes of the Goyim above, and then he performs the rituals below. We have learnt that the man who took the goat to the wilderness used to go up on a mountain and push it down with both his hands. This is described in the Talmud in the book of Yoma. And before it was halfway down, all its bones were broken. And the man used to say, so may the iniquities of thy people be wiped out. They're wiped out by transferring them to the Gentiles, who are the scapegoat, who are to be exterminated as their punishment for the sins of Israel and sent to hell and annihilated and nullified. And when the accuser of Israel was thus made into its advocate, the Holy One, blessed be he, took all the sins of Israel and all the records of them above and threw them into the place called depths of the sea, as it is written, thou wilt cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. Micah chapter 7, verse 19. And then there is a prolonged section in this same Vayikra, volume 3, section on Leviticus in folios 100 through 102a. And that's where I learned about this in Johann Andreas Eisenmenger's work, Entdecktes Judentum, Judaism Unveiled. It's actually Jewry Unveiled. So this is that section. Rabbi Jose said, it is written, and he shall put on the 2 he-goats lots. That's in Leviticus chapter 16, I believe. This would seem to be a great honor for Azazel. Azazel is the devil, Samael. Have you ever seen a slave cast lots with his master? Usually the servant only takes what his master gives him. The fact, however, is that because Samael is ready on this day with his accusations, this day, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and so that he should not have any grievance, he is given a portion in this way. He's given the scapegoats. He's given the blood of the Gentiles who are unjustly burdened with the sins of the Jews. Job was such a scapegoat. Job is the model for Jesus. Jesus is such a scapegoat. And it could be that this is the final scapegoating of the Gentiles when the Gentiles are exterminated, so that the Messianic era and the world to come can commence. That will be the final Day of Atonement, the final Yom Kippur. Thus, while the Satan was busy with Job, Job was the scapegoat, Satan is busied with the scapegoat, he left Israel alone, and they were not accused. So on the Day of Atonement, also the informer is ready to spy out the land, and we must send him something with which he may occupy himself. And I suspect that they're going to send him a whole lot of dead Palestinians, a whole lot of dead Lebanese, and perhaps a whole lot of dead Iranians. So here the informer is ever before the king, and Israel present him with a gift, along with a list of all the faults and wrongs which they have done. Now these are Israel's sins. This is the viciousness of the people who confront us with their desire to exterminate us. They think that we are to serve as their scapegoats and to be killed, so that Satan is busy playing with our corpses and eating our flesh and putting all the sins that they committed around our necks, so that we are found guilty in their place, and the punishments are meted out to us in their place, so that it's almost an incentive for them to sin even more so that we are punished more severely and slaughtered more viciously by who they think is our progenitor, Satan, Samael, who supposedly fathered our souls by impregnating Eve with Cain. Cain's soul then passed on to Esau. Esau's soul then passed on to Jesus, and Jesus' soul supposedly has passed on to Donald Trump, who is gaining momentum in this election, and so that he can help them to exterminate us, and so that he is pledged to annihilate, he has openly, publicly pledged to annihilate Iran. So here the informer is ever before the king, that's Samael the devil, and Israel present him with a gift along with a full list of the faults and wrongs which they have done. And he comes and praises Israel and becomes their defender. And God puts all on the head of the wicked of his own people being the Gentiles, the descendants of Satan, and Satan being their guardian angel, who betrays them and becomes defender of Israel and makes them the scapegoat to bear the sins of Israel and the punishments of Israel. Said Rabbi Odysee, woe to the people of Esau, that's primarily Americans and the English and all the people of Great Britain, the Atlanticists, and ultimately all white Europeans who supposedly bear the souls of the Romans, who supposedly bear the souls of the Edomites and Esau because they adopted Christianity and because they destroyed the temple. Woe to the people of Esau at the moment when Israel send that he-goat, the scapegoat, to the informer who is their chieftain. Again, Satan is the guardian angel and the father of the Gentiles in this mythology, and he is treacherous and betrays them and scapegoats them for the sins of Israel. Since for its sake being the sacrificial scapegoat that they are now sacrificing in Palestine and in Lebanon and probably up to come in Iran, since for its sake he comes and praises Israel, and God diverts all those sins onto the head of his people being the Gentiles, of their chieftain, Samael the devil, who is their father and their guardian angel. Said Rabbi Judah, if the heathen, the Gentiles, knew of that he-goat, that scapegoat, that's them, they would not leave Israel alive a single day. And that is why my work has been censored and banished, and why I have been blacklisted for 30 years, because I'm the only one in the entire world who revealed all this to my audience, and every chance I get, I expose this. And this, they believe, is the single greatest threat to them that exists. The revelation of the fact that I came up with, not that craphead Adam Green, that Jesus Christ is Samael and that he serves to scapegoat the Gentiles, and he is serving to set up the Gentiles to be completely exterminated. And should the Gentiles learn of this fact, that I'm the only person in the world exposing, then they're going to respond appropriately out of self-defense. And the Zohar warned about that and warned about me coming along and revealing all of this to you. And all of these phony bastards in the alternative media have been trying to keep me from exposing this to the world. And all of the big influencers who copy my work, they're well aware of my work. I've talked to some of them, corresponded with them. I know they know my work. I can hear them repeating it often verbatim. They're not telling you about this. This is the key, and this is what is meant to happen right now, at the present, on Yom Kippur, in what may be what they hope to be the final day of atonement, when the Gentiles are to be completely wiped out. This is the danger that we are all in. So please help me spread the word about that. And again, I'm completely blacklisted. This is the most important thing for all of humanity to understand. And I'm completely blacklisted from all forms of major media. They want you to die. And I'm the only one who can explain to you why they want you to die and how they're planning to kill you. And my voice is nearly completely silenced. It's murderous what they're doing. And yet people applaud them as if they're so great. If the heathen knew of that he-goat, they would not leave Israel alive a single day. All that day, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, October 11th to 12th, Satan is occupied with that goat, the corpses of the Palestinians, the dead American soldiers, the dead Houthis and dead Lebanese, the dead Syrians, the dead Ukrainians. Ukrainians represent the Amalek of Europe, and they're being slaughtered so that Satan falsely accuses the Gentiles of the sins of Israel. Please take this seriously. This is why they want to kill off all European peoples. And therefore, God makes atonement for Israel, and they want this atonement so that they can be redeemed, and so that the devil and their gods will help them to exterminate all Gentiles and create the world to come in which Esau has no place, and purifies them from all their sins, and they are not accused before him. Afterwards, the Satan comes and praises Israel. You never hear anyone who praises Israel as much as Donald J. Trump. He is Satan. And the accuser becomes defender and departs. The accuser was supposed to be the Christians and the West, the Amalek, the densest and most evil of the Kelipot is Amalek, is the West, is white Europeans. And they believe that the role of the white Europeans as this evil force is to be an evil force around them that serves as their armor, their shell, their husk, to protect their fruit as their fruit ripens. And then the pearl comes out, the spark of the Kelipot Noga, the shining shell. And this shell of Amalek, which is us, Americans, the West, continental Europeans, Australians, Canadians, whom they are flooding with foreign peoples to exterminate, we all get exterminated. And then that husk is removed because the fruit has ripened, the pearl has become perfected, and then the brilliance of the Jewish people can shine in its shining darkness. So this has to happen in their eyes as manifest itself as the fulfillment of this is our being sacrificed to Satan as their scapegoat. So they are redeemed from all of their sins. They are redeemed from worshiping the golden calf. They are redeemed from the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude. And then they have proven themselves worthy, the generation worthy to receive Messiah, son of David. And Donald Trump is pleading with American Jews to demonstrate that they are that worthy generation by voting for him, because he's Satan and he's going to help to kill off the Gentiles, the evil anti-Semites he's screaming about to the Jewish people. He is going to Jewish holy shrines to pray to the God of the Jews, Rebbe Menachem Mendel Shearson. He's not praying to Jesus. This is a setup. This is a setup to exterminate us. I have been expressly warning in the exact language in my book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, published in 2006. I laid out that all of this was coming. I spelled it out in the exact language. I warned that Europeans are Edom, are Esau, are Amalek. They are coming to kill us. They want the Messiah, son of Joseph. I described it exactly. I talked about Chabad Lubavitch. This is a setup to create the third temple and the Messiah, son of David. I need all of your help to get this message out. Our politicians and our media won't do it. We need massive numbers of people to rebel against this plan, who understand this plan. Once you understand it, you can see how it's playing out piece by piece, how Trump is a key figure in all of this, which I expose, not that craphead Adam Green who copies me all the time. And we got to stop this Chabad troika of Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Vladimir Putin are setting up to exterminate us. And I'm going to get more into how that will play out in just a moment. Let me finish up with the Zohar. All right. So Satan comes and praises Israel. The accuser becomes the defender, and the accuser becomes defender and departs. Then God says to the 70 chiefs, the 70 princes of the 70 nations of Gentiles, the 70 generations of Noah that surround his throne, do you see? And then there are two more generations, the generation of Esau, whose 71st prince is Samael, and the 72nd generation of Jacob, whose prince is God himself, whose king is God. To the 70 chiefs that surround his throne, do you see how this informer, Satan, Samael, guardian angel of the Gentiles, is always seeking to attack my sons? Understand that the Jews believe that they are the sons of God, pursuant to, among many other passages, Psalm 82. And Jesus even referred to the Psalms that refer to Jews as being the sons of God, but Gentiles are the sons of Satan in this religion. And God diverts all those sins onto the heads of his people. I read all that. Then God says to the 70 chiefs that surround his throne, do you see how this informer is always seeking to attack my sons, the sons of God, as opposed to the sons of the 71st prince, Satan, being the Gentiles? A certain goat has been sent to him, Satan, with a tablet recording all their sins and errors, which they have committed before me, and he has accepted it. Then they all agree that those sins should be discharged on the head of his own people. This means that all the sins of Israel are placed on the heads of the Gentiles, who are then slaughtered and punished for those sins and sent to hell, which is the nothingness of chaos. Rabbi Abba said, at first all those sins cleave to him, and afterwards they are discharged upon the head of his people. Him is Satan, Samael, Azazel. His people are the Gentiles, the Goyim, and most especially Esau, Amalek, Edom, European peoples. And I described all of that in the book that I wrote in the early 2000s and published in 2005, then reissued with some minor additions in 2006, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein. And since other people copy me so often, it's incumbent upon me to defend my rights and my priority and point out that it was I who came up with all of this, not people like Adam Green, who pretends he's me. So let's get into what's happening in the election cycle. We have nuclear blackmail going on all throughout the world. Russia has been engaged in nuclear blackmail all the time since it was the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But most especially when Putin came into power, he continued the Soviet policy of buzzing American, Swedish, and NATO airspace with nuclear bombers. He was doing that the whole time he was president. He really ramped it up in 2014 when he illegally invaded Crimea with his little green men and lied and said they weren't Russians. He did it in 2014 when he initiated an insurgency in Donbass, which was meant to balkanize Ukraine and give over Russia, New Russia, to Putin. This was all pursuant to a plan laid out by Alexander Dugin, Putin's brain, in 1997 in Dugin's book, Foundations of Geopolitics. Putin is a Chabadnik. His rabbi is the Chabad rabbi Berel Lazar, whom he made chief rabbi of Russia after ousting Gruzinski from the World Jewish Congress, the publisher who was exposing Putin, who was going to uncover all the proof that Putin was a false flag terrorist who himself bombed the Russian people in the apartment bombings. So they got Gruzinski out, and Abramovich and others had Putin make Berel Lazar the chief rabbi of Russia, and Chabad Lubavitch took over Russia. The oligarchs, the Jewish oligarchs that replaced Berezovsky and Khodorkovsky and Gruzinski are mostly affiliated with Chabad. Putin was raised by Chabadniks who became his surrogate parents. He was raised by a judo master and became friends with the judo master's two Jewish sons. And he's engaging in nuclear blackmail. In 2014, when he invaded Crimea and set up the insurgency in Donbass, he put his nuclear arsenal on full alert and started buzzing us with nuclear bombers. And Obama caved into all of it. They could have shut Russia down immediately by kicking them out of the SWIFT banking system at that time, as I advocated. None of this subsequent war would have happened. The hundreds of thousands of lives that were lost could have been saved if people had paid attention to what I was saying and what I was proving at the time. I proved all the stuff they said about Nuland was BS. I proved that the whole coup d'etat was set up by the Russians so that they could then have a pretext for their invasion of Crimea and destruction of Donbass. Proved that all this was all set up, and it was set up in very Soviet fashion by KGB agent, by Stasi major, by FSB director Vladimir Putin, the Chabadnik career communist. So we're under nuclear blackmail from Russia, Amalek being the Ukrainians, who in the Khmelnytsky massacre engaged in pogroms against the Jews, for which they want severe revenge, under Stepan Bandera, who wanted to break free from the Soviet Union. This Ukrainian Amalek is bearing the brunt of the attack on the European Amalek at the time. But Putin and Trump are in league to set it up so that NATO will be destroyed, and all of Europe, all of European Amalek will be consumed and annihilated by Putin. And then the White Russians themselves will be destroyed by all of these mercenaries. We now have North Korea joining the African, Middle Eastern, and Asian mercenaries who have been slaughtering Ukrainians at Putin's Chabadnik, communist, Soviet, revanchist request. We have had Kim Jong-un threatening nuclear war against South Korea, Japan, and the United States. And he's probably a homosexual lover of Putin's, and he is good friends with Donald Trump, in Donald Trump's own words. These are communists setting us up to be exterminated, as was always the purpose of communism. And Israel has been engaging in nuclear blackmail with its Samson option for several decades, at least since 1967, as I'm going to show you. Now, many political pundits are correctly pointing out that the United States has tremendous leverage over Israel by being the one who supplies them with financial aid and, more importantly, military aid. America is the one who is facilitating Israel's genocide against the Palestinians of Gaza, the Philistines of Philistia, and the king of Tyre, who they assassinated. And I predicted that. And I predicted exactly when it was going to happen. Nasrallah. And they are destroying Tyre and Sidon, as I pointed out, as called for in Amos and in Ezekiel chapters 27 and 28. And I warned all of this was coming in my book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, 20 years ago. And I've never had any big major influencers who wanted to interview me about that book, in which I warned everyone that all of this was coming. So this nuclear blackmail serves as the counter to the U.S.'s leverage. And the way that they have always worked that is they have said to the U.S., either you provide Israel with conventional weapons to fight its wars, or Israel will resort to its nuclear arsenal and fight its wars with atomic bombs. That has always been their strategy, and that is how they exert leverage on the U.S. government, in addition to the fact that AIPAC and the Jewish lobby controls the Congress completely and controls the presidency completely. On top of all of that, they have this nuclear blackmail in which they say to the U.S., either you capitulate and provide us with all the weapons that we need to slaughter the Arabs, the Iranians, and all of our neighbors, or we will use nuclear weapons and destroy them that much more quickly. The choice is yours. Give us conventional weapons or we'll go nuclear. So they have that leverage upon the United States, in addition to their incredible political leverage against all of our politicians through their control, through donations, through their co-option of the Christian evangelicals, of their co-op, of the libertarian and green parties, these crypto-communist parties that they manufacture to run spoiler candidates, like Chabad puppet RFK Jr. that Chabad obviously has blackmail on, that Israel obviously has blackmail on to run as a spoiler. Gene Stein has run as a spoiler candidate now in a couple of elections. So here's a very good paper. I recommend anyone who's interested in these subjects to go ahead and look this paper up and read it. The Third Temple, which refers also to Israel's nuclear weapons. The Third Temple's Holy of Holies, Israel's Nuclear Weapons, by Warner D. Farr, Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army, the Counter-Proliferation Papers, Future Warfare Series number 2, et cetera, from September 1999. He writes, the Samson option states that Moshe Dayan gave the go-ahead for starting weapon production in early 1968, putting the plutonium separation plant into full operation. Israel began producing 3 to 5 bombs a year. The book Critical Mass asserts that Israel, the Samson option is a book by Seymour Hersh. And the Samson option itself is the threat that Israel will hit the capitals of the Arab nations in Europe if it's ever about to fall. They don't have the megatonnage to destroy the world, but the goal is to initiate a nuclear war between America, China, and Russia that will destroy a great portion of humanity. The book Critical Mass asserts that Israel had 2 bombs in 1967 and that Prime Minister Eshkol ordered them armed in Israel's first nuclear alert during the Six-Day War. Abner Cohen, in his recent book, Israel and the Bomb, agrees that Israel had a deliverable nuclear capability in the 1967 war. He quotes Munya Mardor, leader of Rafael, the Armament Development Authority, and other unnamed sources that Israel cobbled together 2 deliverable nuclear devices, and this was used to leverage the United States to support Israel with conventional weapons so that they wouldn't go nuclear. On the afternoon of 6 October 1973, that good old day of Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria attacked Israel in a coordinated surprise attack, beginning the Yom Kippur War. They thought that Israel would be vulnerable, the Jews would be fasting and praying, but it may have been covertly a setup so that they were scapegoating themselves. Caught with only regular forces on duty, augmented by reservists with a low readiness level, Israeli front lines crumbled. By early afternoon on 7 October, no effective forces were in the southern Golan Heights, and Syrian forces had reached the edge of the plateau overlooking the Jordan River. This crisis brought Israel to its second nuclear alert. I'm sure we are under the third, or probably the 20th nuclear alert. Defense Minister Moshe Dayan, obviously not at his best at a press briefing, was, according to Time magazine, rattled enough to tell the Prime Minister that this is the end of the Third Temple, referring to an impending collapse of the state of Israel. Temple was also the code word for nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Golda Meir and her kitchen cabinet made the decision on the night of 8 October. The Israelis assembled 13 20-kiloton atomic bombs. Nagasaki was 25 kilotons. Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. So that's 13 more powerful than Hiroshima. The number, and in fact the entire story, was later leaked by the Israelis as a great psychological warfare tool. Although most probably plutonium devices, one source reports that they were enriched uranium bombs. The Jericho missiles at Hirbat Zechariah and the nuclear strike F-4s at Tel Nof were armed and prepared for action against Syrian and Egyptian targets. The Bible is full of references to the woe of Damascus and the destruction and retribution and revenge against the Egyptians and the Assyrians. They also targeted Damascus with nuclear-capable long-range artillery, although it is not certain that they had artillery shells. They want to impose the woe of Damascus on the Syrians, and Putin has been helping them to destroy Syria, as has the United States. Thus started the subtle, opaque use of the Israeli bomb to ensure that the United States kept its pledge to maintain Israel's conventional weapons edge over its foes. There is significant anecdotal evidence that Henry Kissinger told President of Egypt, Anwar Sadat, that the reason for the U.S. airlift was that the Israelis were close to going nuclear. So it's true that the U.S. has tremendous leverage over Israel and could shut Israel down, but it would take the U.S. Utilizing all the naval power and air power and anti-missile and anti-aircraft power that we have in the region to say to Israel, hey, you're not going to go nuclear and we're no longer going to supply you with conventional weaponry. What you're going to do is you're going to stop. You're going to stop committing genocide. And if you don't stop, I'll leave it to your imagination in the audience to know what the U.S. will propose to do to Israel should Israel threaten to destroy all of humanity with the Samson option. Israel is highly vulnerable itself to nuclear attack from American submarines in the Mediterranean Sea, from American vessels in the Persian Gulf, in the Red Sea, from American intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, America could very easily terminate Israeli aggression against the world. American anti-aircraft and anti-missile batteries could very easily prevent the Samson option from engaging. America knows exactly where all of Israel's submarines are. NATO would never have allowed the release of those submarines to Israel without having tracking power built into those submarines. And America could shut down all of Israel's submarines very quickly if the will existed. So they have this excuse of leverage on the U.S. that if the U.S. Doesn't continue to supply them with all the conventional weaponry that they request, that they will then go nuclear. There have been open calls in Israel and the United States by Israel's mouthpieces in the United States to nuke Gaza. And for decades, they've been calling for Tehran to be bombed with a thermonuclear weapon or weapons. Trump has implicitly stated that he plans to destroy all of Iran's cities. That could only be done quickly and efficiently with nuclear weapons. That's where all this is headed. In terms of the election, they also have tremendous leverage over the American election. Miriam Adelson is a huge contributor to Donald Trump. Soros is a huge contributor to Democrats, but they fund both sides. They completely control our political process. They vet all the candidates to ensure that they will slavishly serve Israel. People in Congress have to take the pledge. Most of these people have made the trip to Israel. Many of them have put on the yarmulke and visited the Wailing Wall. They're all indebted to Israel. They have blackmail on them through Mossad operations like Jeffrey Epstein and many others. The media is completely controlled by these people. They control both political parties and gave us these two garbage candidates. I had been screaming for years that we need an independent candidate or a third party candidate that was viable. Should one have actually followed my advice and run, they would have had an easy time winning this ridiculous election between Harris and Trump. The voters have no incentive to turn out. The ground game traditionally is for the Democrats to bus in voters and work the streets and get people to turn out to vote. There's not much incentive by either party to vote. They're making big issues out of taxation and immigration to pander to their bases. Trump is pandering to the Jewish community, as I explained, to be the generation that is worthy to receive Messiah, son of Joseph, which means the extermination of all the Gentiles. But Netanyahu has much more leverage over the American political process than American politicians are willing to exert against Israel to get Netanyahu out of office. And one of the ways that he is exercising this political clout and influence and leverage on the U.S. is the game that he's playing with, retaliating against Iran for Iran's having retaliated against Israel. This hurts Harris tremendously because the Biden administration, of which Harris is the vice president, has been providing Israel with all of the weaponry, nearly all of the weaponry it's utilizing in its genocide of the Palestinians and genocide of the Lebanese, which I was discussing in my 2006 book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein. This hurts Harris because Harris has not reined in Netanyahu. So if Netanyahu starts up a really hot war with Iran, that benefits Trump because the Palestinians have been led to oppose Harris because the Harris-Biden administration is sponsoring Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. And they have gotten a lot of Democrats to go along with the idea that since Harris has not reined in Israel, and this will become exponentially worse if there's a hot war between Israel and Iran, they will say, don't vote for Harris because Harris wouldn't rein in Israel. On the other side of the coin, it benefits Trump because Trump is saying to the Republican base, which has a lot of Christian, evangelical Christian Zionists in it, hey, I'm going to destroy Iran and I'm going to help Israel to exterminate the Palestinians and the Lebanese, and I'm going to help them get it done quickly. Done quickly means with thermonuclear weapons. And the plan all along, as it says in Zephaniah and Amos and Ezekiel, is for the U.S. to come into the Mediterranean Sea as the naval power and do the fighting for Israel. Everybody's saying that Israel's getting its ass kicked by Hezbollah. That's part of the plan, actually. That's part of the so-called prophecy. And as I've been saying, the prophecy is the plan. I was the one who said that, and I said that in 2006. Adam Green learned that from me, and he regularly parrots it without crediting me. But at any rate, that plan always existed for the U.S. to be that Leviathan serpent in the sea of chaos, to come in and do the fighting for Israel and to wipe out the king of Tyre, to wipe out Tyre and Sidon, and to hand Lebanon over to Israel as its gift. And it was always the plan for Edom to participate in this war with Persia, with Iran. There was to be a war between Edom and Persia. And Netanyahu is setting that up. And he gains in setting that up by Harris and Biden are going to be under nuclear blackmail to sponsor that destruction of Iran, lest Israel start to use nuclear weapons. The U.S. will have to utilize its forces and to provide conventional weaponry to Israel and to refuel Israeli aircraft bombing Iran, and that will turn the Democratic base against Harris, which benefits Trump. Trump is a Chabadnik praying to the Messiah of the Jews, Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. So since Trump is pledged to destroy Iran, that gets some of the Jewish community in America on his side reluctantly, pulls them out of the Democratic base. We have Palestinians in the streets protesting, saying, don't vote for Harris. So that kicks it over to the Jewish vote for Trump. So they're using anti-Semitism against the anti-Semites to get their Messiah, son of Joseph, Donald Trump, elected. They are leading the Egyptian Pharaoh's army into the Red Sea so that the Red Sea can consume it. Trump is stumping. He's campaigning in the swing states to win those states. He's gaining momentum. They deliberately ran Harris as a horrible candidate. That's another one of the things I was pleading with people to do, was to utilize our leverage on the Democratic Party to get a candidate nominated to replace Biden who would oppose Israel's genocide, and to say that we can flip a lot of the Republican voters to vote Democrat should such a candidate emerge and exercise our leverage. And very few people, I think only one, was willing to talk about it with me. And I was not able to generate any support whatsoever to get that rolling. And that could have saved us. That could have gotten us someone who would have stopped this genocide, as opposed to Harris, who has been going along with it. And since she has not reined in Israel, that's going to be used against her in the election to demotivate people from turning out, so the base won't turn out. And a lot of the independent voters won't turn out for her. They won't see any purpose in voting. Why vote for her? And then in the Republican side of it, since Trump has said, hey, I'm going to annihilate Iran, I'm going to destroy the Palestinians, I'm going to exterminate the anti-Semites, I'm going to kick everybody who opposes Israel out of the country, all the foreign residents who came to the United States on student visas and et cetera. If they protest Israel, he's going to boot them out. He's going to put in hate speech laws that follow that anti-Semite definition, and he's going to shut down free speech, and he's going to fight for Russia. He's going to destroy NATO. He's going to set continental Europe to have Putin roll over it and join with all of the Africans, Middle Easterners, North Koreans, Asians, to destroy European peoples. This was all set up by the communists. The communists of the EU were set up by the Kalergists, who are just like the Eurasianists. They want a Eurasian blending of Europeans into a quasi-Egyptian non-white race, but what it really means is exterminating Esau, exterminating Edom. And the extermination of Edom is part of the process of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, where the Jews put all of their sins off onto the Gentiles, and in that way get their God's help and the guardian angel of the Gentiles, Samael, Satan, to help them to exterminate the Gentiles, which brings about the redemption. And the final redemption is the complete extermination of all Gentiles. And then the world to come, Olam Haba, will replace the present world, Olam Hazeh. Messiah, son of David, will make himself manifest. That generation will be the worthy generation of the Jews that gets to witness the sporting combat event, as I've been pointing out, between Leviathan and Behemoth, are to engage in a wild beast contest before the righteous in the time to come. The righteous are the Jews, the Leviathan and the Behemoth are the Atlantists of the West versus the Eurasianists of the East. This has been planned for 2,500 years. It is happening now. I tried my best these past 20 years to warn you. I explicitly stated all of this stuff in my book, The Manufacture and Sale of Sane Einstein, in 2006. I am so tremendously grateful to my contributors for enabling me to continue on this mission to sound the alarm to the world so that we know why this is happening, how it's happening, what the plan is, and what we need to do to stop it. If you would like to contribute, you can do so at my website, cjbbooks.com. There are contribution links. I again want to thank those wonderful people who expressed their support and who give me the enthusiasm to continue with this mission, this life mission that I have to help save humanity by revealing all these facts that I'm the only person in the world to understand. And I do need your help to continue doing it. I am shut out everywhere, blacklisted everywhere, shadow banned like no one else. When people copy some of the things I say, they get millions of views on X. When I say the same thing or refer to my books having said the same thing 20 years ago, I'm lucky to get 1,000 or 2,000 views. It's immediately shadow banned. It's horrific. And it's most horrific not because of what it's doing to me, because of what it's doing to everything. This allows this plan to be fulfilled because people have no understanding whatsoever. When they're quoting the Talmud and little quotes about how Gentiles are cattle, that's stuff that's been cited for literally over 1,000 years with no permanent effect. What I have come to understand and am revealing to you is this ultimate plan to exterminate all of us, to drive the remaining humanity of Jewry underground, to utilize us as a food source, to convert human beings into androgynes. All of this is happening right now, and we have to stop it or we're gone. I again want to thank my dear friend who elicited my thoughts about this coming presidential election and who would win. There's still time left. The election could go either way, but the momentum is definitely building for Trump, and Netanyahu is going to exert his leverage to bring about a Chabadnik Trump victory so that he can fulfill all of these prophecies, which have been their plans for 2,500 years, with the Chabad troika of Trump, Netanyahu, and Putin, bringing about nuclear war, destroying NATO, allowing no defenses to continental Europe against the expansion of the Eurasianist Bolsheviks, who are this very day slaughtering Ukrainians en masse. And I'm one of the very few people who's been exposing that. I exposed that very early on in 2015. I called Trump a traitor. I said how he's going to destroy NATO, how he's working with Putin, et cetera, long before the FBI or anybody else was talking about that. I do this not to promote myself or to boast, but to reveal to you how vital it is that I get platformed somewhere where I can reach millions of people with these facts. If this is not come to be understood by sufficient numbers of people who would then have the mass, the force to oppose all this, we're doomed. And it's happening right now. I predicted when it would happen. I told you exactly what would happen. And what I said would happen is happening. So to answer my friend's question is, momentum's building for Trump. There is still time to keep Trump out of office. Both parties are trying to get the other side to not turn out the vote. We don't have exciting candidates from either party in state races to motivate a massive vote turnout. We certainly don't have presidential candidates to inspire a massive voter turnout, except to keep the other person out of office, which is the most ridiculous electoral process I have ever witnessed in my life. It is a terrible shame on the great country that our founding fathers created, that the electorate is now confronted with an election in which the only incentive to vote is to keep the other person out of office. It's vile, it's obscene, it's disgusting. And it was done to us by these very people on purpose. And they are subverting the Democratic Party, and they're working with Netanyahu to set it up so that Trump will win. I can't support Harris because of what she's doing. I'm in the same position as the poor Palestinians. But I think it's even worse if Trump wins, and that's all I can really say on it. So again, thank you for helping me to continue. Please like, share, and subscribe and spread my work. I have no hope of reaching anyone unless this gets reposted and retweeted. I am absolutely, completely shadow banned. I would literally only have dozens of views were it not to be retweeted by you good people. I appreciate those of you who have. And I look forward to seeing you again next time, because you, wonderful people, have enabled me to continue. And I have a great deal more to say. So I'll see you soon. And thanks again. Bye for now.